Hello and welcome to the show. This is the Sales for the Nigerian Business Person podcast. It's available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple iTunes, or any podcast player of your choice. So remember to subscribe. It's free once you're done listening to this episode. So today on the show, we're looking at ways to discover your core value proposition, which is another way of referring to your unique value, the unique value that you bring to the market, or basically the reasons why people buy from you. It's a continuation from our previous episode where we covered a bunch of stuff, amongst them being that a lot of people don't know what their CVP is, the USP, or the UVP. Those are some of the many acronyms that you're going to find. Are those acronyms? CVP, USP. Okay, well, I think the acronyms, well, whatever it is that we call them, those are the many shortened terms that you can find for this, referring to the core value proposition, your unique selling proposition, your unique value proposition. All these terms are interchangeable, but they mean pretty much the same thing, and they refer to the value that people find in doing business with you. And we also covered in yesterday's episode why all this is important. By the way, if you want to find out about more of these in detail, and this is your first time of listening to the podcast, then once you're done listening to this episode, just skip back one episode and you'll get caught up to speed. So, in the previous episode, we also covered why it's important, because if we can find this main reason or these main groups of reasons, because sometimes it's not just one, it might be two or three, it's going to give you cues on what to double down on in your business, on what to reinforce in your business and go harder on in your business. It'll also give you cues for how to tweak, how to change, how to improve your business messaging so that you can have more effective marketing campaigns and much more effective sales conversations with potential buyers. It's going to make you more effective when you put out your Facebook ads, your Instagram ads, your TV or radio ads, if you play in that space, and also when you're one-on-one having conversations with potential customers. If you know what the UVE, sorry, I say UVE, the UVP, sorry, forgive me, the initials, the acronyms are just, there are a lot of them. Anyway, so once you know what these things are, you're going to know what to key into when you're having a sales conversation. So today we are going to look at one idea that you can use to tease out what your core value proposition is. And before we begin, a note of warning. You can't tease this out by doing solo work or by doing boardroom strategy sessions and blah, blah, blah. Because there are lots of people who want to determine what their unique value proposition is. They want to try and figure out what people like about them. And then they sit down with their friends and then, or with a business partner or with their spouse. And then they start coming up with all sorts of reasons. And the thing is, all these reasons sometimes sound plausible. When we finish this podcast episode and I show you the case study that we're going to use, it'll make a lot of sense, even if you don't agree with me now. All these things might sound very plausible, the things that you and your wife or you and your husband come up with about possible reasons for why people are doing business with you. But the thing is, all this internal work, when you're sitting down in the boardroom or talking with your friends, your brother, your wife, your husband, whoever, all this internal work is just guesswork, and it means absolutely nothing until you can test it out in the market. So even if both of you sit down in the room, husband and wife, and you try and figure out a couple of things, you have to test that messaging. And it's the market's response that will let you know whether you guys are on point or whether you've missed the boat. So it's always the market that is going to determine whether you are correct or not when it comes to these important things around market messaging. The copy you use, the photos, the images, the value you provide, all these things. They're all tied in together and reinforce each other. So, in other words, if you want to get to the root of what your unique value is that you bring to the market, you have to go out and talk to other people. You're not going to sit down in the boardroom or your co-working space, if you have business partners and stuff like that, and then decide. And you're not going to sit in your parlor and talk with your wife or your husband and then decide. Or you're not just going to go over to your mom's house because you need someone to brainstorm with and then you guys brainstorm a bunch of stuff. That's not what's going to give you the right answers. You have to go out and talk to people. Now, which people do we have to talk to? And the answer is customers. I would like to point out something because while having a chat with people during the Smedan event, it's something that I referred to a couple of episodes ago, maybe 3, 4 episodes ago. That was the event that was organized by the what's it called, Small and Medium Scale Development Authority of Nigeria. I can't remember what Smedan means, so forgive me. I went to school like everyone else, so I guess I wasn't good at social studies or whatever topic it was when we discussed all these government bodies. So, but basically, they're the folks who try to make sure that small and medium scale people, basically Nigerian business owners who have less than 300 employees, or is it less than 10 million in revenue or 100 million? I can't remember, but I think it's less than 300 employees, just to make sure that people have all the resources and information that they need to grow in their business. I guess there's a lot of support for the big boys and the big girls in the market, so they just want to make sure that the little guys are also taken care of as well. Okay, I shouldn't be saying little guys, the growing guys, the growing guys and girls that have upside potential in their business. Yes, that's a better way of doing it. So while the Smedan event was on, I got the sense that there are some people that are okay with talking to intending customers to get their market intel. But actually, intending customers, that's not bad. Talking to intending customers is definitely better than going to a co-working space and hashing it out with your boys or talking with your husband and wife and trying to come up with market intel. So intending customers, yes, is better than doing internal guesswork. But the best group of people to ask for these things are the actual customers who have spent time and invested money in you or in your product. Those are the people who are going to give you the data that you can trust because they have a stake in the game. They are actually invested. They are the ones who know where your product pinches them, how your service helps them, things like that. Intending customers, those people are just, it's also guesswork because there are people who have asked intending customers a couple of questions before they launch into business. They go and act on that information. Then they come back to the intending customers and say, hey, I've taken action on this thing that you suggested. Will you buy? And then the person says, no, I'm not going to buy. And then in that case, what do you do? When you've taken market research from people that look like intending customers, but now these people don't actually want to buy. So the people that we should be talking to when we're trying to figure out what the core value we bring to the market is, the main reason why people buy from us is the actual customers, people who have actually spent money with us and have spent time with us. Now, how do you talk to these people? Obviously, by having conversations. If you're a long time listener to the podcast, you know that my own preference is first of all, face to face, you, me, sitting down, you're in front of me, we're having a chat. If you can't do that, then audio, pick up the phone, pick up the WhatsApp call. If that's not available, or rather, side by side, the WhatsApp video call, if you guys are comfortable with that sort of thing, WhatsApp, Skype. After that, then text-based communications, whether it's the WhatsApp text messaging or SMS. Then after that, email, because that's a little stilted and formal. And at the very bottom, I have questionnaires and surveys and that sort of thing. And I'll explain why I think they're at the bottom of the pile. So what I recommend is that's the hierarchy that I recommend pretty much. But whatever it is that you have available to you is fine, and take it from there. Start with what you're comfortable with. So you talk to these people by having conversations and listening. Not just listening, you also have to take note of what they have to say. When I say take note, I don't mean take mental note, not try to remember, as in take a note, write it down, record it somewhere. Because there's no point in having all these conversations with our customers or our clients. Let's say we take the time out, we select 5 people, we go talk to them, and then we don't write down what it is that they say. The whole point of taking notes is so that we can refer back to it and then start implementing some changes so that it guides what we do. If you take mental note, you will forget. You definitely will forget. There's no point in arguing this. Nobody has a perfect memory. If I speak to 10 of my best customers, I hear 4 or 5 things that are important to them, and I take a mental note of it, something might happen. Tomorrow we might go for PTA meeting. After that, I might have to take my child to the hospital. Then after that, might be Sunday. Then maybe it's Monday, and then we have community association, TIV Association of Abuja, or Egbe Omo Oduduwa Association meeting in Abuja or something. And then it's now Tuesday, it's time to implement. And then out of the 4 things that they said, I know that I remember 1 and 2, but Kai, what's that number 3? I can't remember that number 3. I can't remember that number 4. I can't remember that number 5. That's what's going to happen. So taking note means making a record. Now, like I said, customer surveys are not useful at this stage because you don't know what the options to put into this survey are. When people do customer surveys, they really, they put, why did you do business with us? Option A, option B, option C, and then you're supposed to take one. But the thing is, all the options that you're putting into the survey at this point, if this is your first time of doing it, is just guesswork. Apart from it being guesswork, you're already funneling the responses that people can give. You have already decided what the possible answers are, and you're forcing people to pick what you think, what you have determined the possible answers are. That is why, as a first step, I don't think customer surveys are useful, and you should start with it because you are setting the parameters and you're guessing at what you think the possible options are or what the possible problems are. So the first thing to do is to have open conversations. When you have open conversations first, like in the example that I gave, I've spoken to 10 of my clients. They give a bunch of responses. We write them down. In the future, when we design questionnaires, online surveys, or SMS surveys, or whatever, around the things that they've said, then we're going to get a different outcome. The market has already told us what's important, what's not important, what the possible options are, things of that nature. So do this exercise in person first. You will get all the data that you need to correctly input into your form, into your questionnaire, into your survey, into your email form, into whatever it is. Then in future, yes, to save yourself time, because it's going to take time to go around and talk to your 10 best clients. In future, you can now take that information and then blast it out to maybe 200 people that have done business with you over the last 5 years or something. So that's how it works. Let's do the physical process first. It'll give us all the data that we need, and it will help us to design the questionnaire, the survey that we can send out tomorrow and scale the whole process. Now, how do you have frank and open questions? Well, first of all, make it a chat. And by that, I mean make it semi-formal. If I show up to the office, showing up to the office is not a problem. But if we show up with formal airs, they might not feel like they might not be able to talk freely. So make it a chat, make it semi-formal. Let it be a conversation so that somebody can talk freely. If you hit on a point, on a sore point, the person should be able to talk freely. Like I handled the customer service audit, and I made a podcast episode about that. I did a customer service audit for a law firm, and the partner had told me that they suspected that the client was unhappy about something. And that's how I started off the meeting. I was like, hey, bro, how you doing now? Correct business you have here. Also, apart from this, what else do you guys do? I got a sense of, stuff that they do. And then I just cut straight to the chase. That look, the reason why I'm here is it's XYZ law firm that has hired me, and the partners want to serve you better, but they suspect that there are a couple of things that can be improved upon in the relationship. The guy that I'm talking to, he's like, there are a few concerns, and I asked a couple of questions, and we took the conversation from there. And because I kept it real, informal, I didn't make this a formal thing with a, what do you call this thing? When you have a paper with the options there that I'm ticking as they're talking. Since it was a simple conversation, we were just chatting freely. And I kept the conversation. I'm like, oh, really? That happened? Ah, okay. How did that happen? Okay, how did that make you feel? Wait, what was the cause of that? Okay, do you think if we had done things like this, the outcome would have been different? And we just had a simple chat. And the guy spoke and spoke and spoke. And what I thought was going to be a 10-minute conversation turned out to be close to 45 minutes. Oh, and yes, by the way, the partner was correct. There were a few things that the guy was unhappy about, but he just was not saying. So let's make it a chat. Let's make it semi-formal. The whole point of it, even if it's going to be a very formal thing, just let the person know they can talk freely. So the kinds of questions that you can use in these sorts of things, well, first of all, thanks for buying. That's not a bad way of starting off the conversation. The general open-ended questions. What was with your experience with ABC? What could we have done better with XYZ? Why did you decide to buy 1, 2, 3 or 4, 5, 6? Or just the general stuff. But what we're aiming for is we're not asking questions that people can answer with a yes or a no. If you say, oh, were you happy with ABC? The answer is either going to be yes or no. Yes or no doesn't give you much information to work on. But if you say, what was your experience with, there's room. The person can't say yes and keep quiet or no and keep quiet. The person has to say, the experience, it was okay, Sha. And if you're sharp, that's where you will say, okay, this one I say, okay, Sha. That means that there's some question mark here. It means there's some K leg. Okay, you can talk freely. Or madam, you can talk freely. What really happened? I can see from the look on your face that you're not really totally happy with everything. What is it that happened? And then from there, you're going to have a frank conversation. So all these questions that I have suggested and these approaches don't really make sense until you put them in a live context. An example is also back to that SMEDAN event where I was talking to them about qualification and discovery as part of the perfect sales process. If you're new to this podcast, when you're done, use the search function in the website or in the podcast app where you're listening to this episode right now. You'll be able to find the older episodes where I spoke about qualification and discovery. You know what that means in the sales process and why they are important. Those are separate topics on its own, so I don't want to start unpacking them. But okay, let's just give a small summary. Qualification and discovery, that's the part of the sales process where you're trying to figure out who am I talking to, what is this person's need, is this the right person that I'm talking to, does the person have a problem that is worth solving. You need to find out all these things before you engage in the conversation, because if you're not talking to the right person, then why are you giving price? If you're talking to the office secretary, why are you giving price? The office secretary can't take any decision in it. If they have the wrong expectations around money, then why are you giving price? If the expectation is that your product or service is going to cost 20K, but then the industry average, not just you, but even your competition, industry average is 150K, then why are you negotiating? It's not going to work. You can't take somebody from 20K and start moving them up to 150K. It's not just going to work. They have wrong expectations. Anyway, so that's why the qualification and discovery stage is an important part of the sales process. So for the SMEDAN people, we were using an example in the agriculture industry where we're looking at poultry farmers, because people don't just buy chickens from poultry farmers, turkey farmers. People don't just buy meat. There are some people that come and buy the waste. They come and buy the eggshells. They come and buy the chicken poop. They come and buy feathers. They come and buy all sorts of things. So from the group interaction that we had in the session, it became clear, it proved that there are different reasons why people buy chicken waste products. And one of the scenarios that we explored was the whole thing around fertilizer. Now, if somebody buys eggshells from you, you might just keep selling them the eggshells, and after a while, they stop buying eggshells. You never know what it is that happened. But the thing is, if you ask them the question, why did you decide to buy eggshells from us? See, that's open-ended. It's not yes or no. You might get an answer that they bought it for fertilizer, because some people also buy eggshells for excuse me, some people also buy eggshells for animal feed. I think you can take it and grind it and then mix with a couple of stuff and then put it in human food, or give to animals to eat and things like that. So the answer, fertilizer. And by the way, this was coming from members of the group, not from me, because this was the point where I was getting them to freestyle to see what kind of qualification questions and discovery questions should we be asking. I wanted the people to see that it's not hard, it's not rocket science. This is a part where you can sit down and brainstorm with your family members and friends, and you will get good intel on this bit when you're coming up with what kind of questions to ask. And the agric people, they came up with some really interesting questions. That, okay, the person bought for fertilizer. You can ask, what type of crop are you growing? What is the scale of the farming? Is that at the back of your house, or is it large scale? What is the nature of the soil? Is it that brown soil? Is it the one that looks like it's sandy? Is it the one that looks like it's white? That's what somebody suggested. Instead of using the technical terms of saying good soil, loamy soil, clay soil, that you can keep a description like that. Like, oh, what kind of sand? Is it the sandy one? Is it the stony one? Blah, blah, blah. The reasons why all these questions are important, because if they answer that they're into large-scale farming and what they farm is beans is a legume, then you'll be able to know in your own professional opinion that chicken poop would have been much more adequate, because like the people in the group pointed out, chicken poop has higher ammonia and nitrogen content, which is what the beans needs to grow. So from asking these sorts of questions, you now have all the intelligence, all the data that you need to improve your sales conversations. Because the next time you're faced with another farmer looking to buy waste products, from what this last guy has told you and what you've been able to figure out with your professional opinion, you're going to be able to have much more fruitful conversations next time you're faced with a farmer. Even if the farmer who is buying waste products from you is not a beans farmer, even if he's a rice farmer or something, you now know that it's not as simple as people come here and buy eggshells and leave. I need to know why they're buying it so I can make a better professional recommendation, and so that they're happy and then they keep coming back. So all these sorts of open-ended questions are really important, rather, when you're trying to figure out the main reason why people are using your products or your services. And when you know now why people are buying it, you now know how to tweak your promotions, your advertising, and things of that nature. So how should you take notes? Should it be audio recordings? Because nowadays most phones. Okay, well, Apple has that audio recording thing. I think Android phones too have apps you can download. So with most phones, you can just set it on record and then start talking. But note, you should only do this if you have permission. Let the other person know that this meeting is being recorded, because lots of people don't like recorded meetings that they're unaware of. And then apart from that, some people stiffen up when they notice that the session is being recorded or that video is being taken. They might not talk as freely. So those are some of the things to note. Should you use paper and pencil? It's not a bad idea. But if you're going to do that, just use shorthand, write the most important things. Let it not be a dictation that they're talking and then you're writing word for word. And then, of course, take permission or let them know why you are writing stuff so that people don't get guarded or curious. It might not be a bad idea to go along with your PA, your personal assistant, with your sales boy, with your secretary, with your business partner, with your whoever, so that you can focus on asking questions and drive the conversation. Then the other person will take notes, because not everybody can talk and take notes at the same time. So if you're driving the conversation and the conversation is flowing freely and you're digging in every time the person brings up a problem or they say something, the other guy or the other girl who's with you can be writing. Then sometimes you might have to take screenshots or photographs of samples or things that they show you, or processes that they have. That's also possible. But of course, you have to take permission, and you also have to make it clear the reason why you're asking all these questions and taking all these samples. You have to let them know that you're doing all this to improve the quality of service that they, the buyer, the customer, or the client, is going to receive next time. Yes, we're doing all this because we want to improve our business. But when we're communicating with them, we have to make the experience all about them and how we want to make them happier and serve them better. That's the reason why we're having this conversation. And if they trust that that's the reason why we're having this conversation, then they're going to talk freely. Now, what do you do with the answers that you get? I've been hinting at it throughout this podcast episode. Use the answers to improve your product. Use the answer to improve your service. Make the changes that will solve the complaints that the customers have. And then most importantly, use the words of the clients, not words that you guessed by yourself, and use that to shape or to inform how you handle sales conversations and marketing and advertising, etc. For instance, back to the chicken thing, people from a certain community are buying your poultry waste, they're using it for fertilizer. Let's say it's a beans farming community and they're not very literate. Like they pointed out in the Smedan group, if you're going to be using clay soil, loamy soil, blah, 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 in your advertising, then the people might not understand, when they're scrolling through Facebook and stuff like that. But if, let's say, for instance, you talk to 5 clients and your clients keep referring to a particular kind of soil as sand, for instance, that's how some people would say sandy soil in this part of the world. So if they're saying sand, then perhaps it might not be a bad idea when you're rolling out a Facebook ad or you're coming up with your WhatsApp broadcast to send to your clients. Instead of saying loamy soil, sandy soil, use whatever expressions that they come up with. Let it inform our messaging. Now, the case study that I promised, we're going to do that now to show why it's a bad idea to sit in your room or to talk with your wife or with your business board and guess that this is the reason why people are doing business with us. Now, unfortunately, it's an American startup case study that I can't remember the name, but the story is plausible, so just go with me here. Now, the product that they were selling was some fancy equipment that you hook up to restaurants. It's a water treatment and recycling facility, sort of. It's a mini thing. It gets fitted in the restaurant kitchen. So, like I said, it's to be used in restaurants. And then the problem that was being solved was because restaurants in this part of America were defrosting meat by running cold water. And that's because the health codes in that part of the city or that part of the district provided that you have to thaw out meat by using running water instead of just leaving things out on the table overnight. The kind of thing that we Nigerians would do. You just take the meat out, you put it on the counter, and you go to bed. You wake up in the morning, it would have thawed out. So I guess, in those climes, they're worried about maybe you leave it out there and then flies come and lay eggs on it overnight or something. So anyway, bottom line, because of the health codes, that is how restaurants were defrosting, were thawing out and defrosting meat in that city. So you bring out the meat fresh from the freezer, you drop it in the sink, you open the tap and let the water run over it, and then you go and do other stuff. You come back, the meat is defrosted, and then you now cook it. That was what they were doing to meet legal requirements. So the founder of the company, he thought his unique selling proposition, his unique core proposition, the main reason why people were doing business with him, the main reason why people were buying his product, he thought that the main reason why people were doing this was for environmental reasons and for sustainable development reasons and to reduce water waste and blah, blah, blah. All those fancy stuff, earth related. Okay, maybe not fancy because these things are important. But he thought that was the main reason because that was the sales pitch that he was carrying to go and give to everybody. We only have one earth. Let's keep the earth green. Let's not waste water, all that sort of things. After a while, he was finding the product hard to sell because the product was an expensive product. Remember, I said it's sort of like a treatment or recycling thing that you attach. I didn't quite get the whole explanation, but you attach some stuff in the kitchen basically, and it would recycle the water. So it was expensive. They were finding it hard to sell, and restaurant business in America is already expensive, so people don't want to buy an extra item. But then somebody suggested, look, go and talk to the people that you've already done business with now. Let's find out why they're buying from us. Let's see what we can learn. So after talking to his current customers, he found out the actual core value proposition, the main reason why people were doing business with them. Yes, the product was expensive to install. But once you install the product and the thing starts running, it ended up saving the restaurants thousands of dollars annually on their water bill. So they'll spend money now, but by the time the thing runs for a year, they have saved money. By next year, their profits are increasing. So the unique selling point for the chef or the owners of the restaurant had nothing to do with whether the earth is green or whether the earth is viable or livable. It had nothing to do with sustainability. It had nothing to do with the environment. The reason why they were buying was because the product was making the restaurant cheaper to run. And if the restaurant is cheaper to run, if it has lower running costs for restaurants, then their profit margins automatically become higher. Because remember, I said the food business in America has slim margins. Okay, maybe I didn't stress well how the thing was making them save money. When you open the tap and you want to defrost, let's say 10 kilograms of meat, you might have to leave the tap running for maybe 30 minutes. That is water that is pouring on the meat and that is going down the drain and is just washing away. Now, this is America. It's not Lagos. It's not Abuja. So you're paying for all this water that is just flowing down the drain. You are paying. At the end of the month, you definitely will pay. You don't pay, they cut you off. In this part of the world, we get away with stuff. So, we just leave the tap running all the time. You wash the car and the tap is running even though you're not using the water. And to wash 2 cars, you've left the tap running for 1 hour. So we get away with that kind of waste in this part of the world. But over there, you will pay. But then with this filtration system, you open the tap, the water gets taken from this end, run through the recycling thing, it's cleansed and purified, and then done back again. So instead of wasting, I don't know, I'm just making up numbers now. Instead of wasting maybe 30 gallons of water to defrost 10 kilogram of chicken, you might find out that it might just be 1 gallon that is recycled and run through over and over and over again and ends up defrosting the same amount of meat. So at the end of the day, instead of wasting 30 gallons every day times 20 days in a month that the restaurant is running, you might just be paying for 1 gallon of water every day for the 20 days. And that's a different. And so that was where the thing made sense. So this thing cost money that we installed it today in January. But by the end of the year, we'll see that, we have saved money in the amount of water that we were using just to defrost chicken. Not to talk of defrosting beef, defrosting fish, defrosting, I don't know if that's how you defrost vegetables. But anyway, you get the point. So this is one example about how customer feedback led to more effective messaging in sales and marketing. So now these guys knew that the next time they went to go and see a chef, the conversation was not, the earth is green, make the earth livable, keep the earth alive for our children and grandchildren. The messaging was now, we've been able to save XYZ restaurants 30,000 naira in, $30,000 avenue in their water bill. Would you be interested to know how we've done that and whether we can do this for you? That's a different conversation from the restaurant owner, because the restaurant owner has said that, what? You heard Ogbuefi, you saved Ogbuefi Chooks $30,000 in his restaurant. Okay, let me hear. What have you got? It's a different conversation. Then you're sitting down with somebody who only cares about dollars and naira and kobo, and you're talking about let's keep the earth green and let's keep the earth for our children and grandchildren. The funny thing is, by talking like this now, in terms of what the customer thinks is important, the business owner, those guys are able to actually help the environment, which is their main thing. So, we've gone over 30 minutes, let me bring it to a close. So stop assuming that you know... Oh, sorry about that. Set the alarm so that I wouldn't go over the podcast recording, and that has happened. Okay, where are we? So stop assuming that you know what the core value proposition is. Go out and talk to people. You will discover what the real value that you bring is. And then when that happens, adjust all your business messaging immediately, like these guys did, and start talking in terms of what the customer thinks is important. This is not a one and done process. It involves lots of iteration. You do it, you get feedback, you change again. That's because the process gets refined and changes over time. So for instance, Nike, maybe during my grandfather's time or my father's time, was all about good quality sports equipment. But then right now, Nike, it's about good quality sports equipment, but then it's also now a fashion item. So the way that you communicate why people buy Nike has changed slightly. So there was a time when you bought Nike shoes because it's the best. It'll improve your swing. It'll improve your performance. It'll improve running time. It'll improve posture. But all that has changed. Now, but people buy Nikes for different reasons. So you change the process over time. So don't be one of those businesses that is going to come up with marketing campaigns, Facebook advertisements, sales scripts, blah, 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 based on value propositions that don't really exist, or the value proposition that you or your partner just made up. So that's it for today. I know that was a lot to take in at one sitting. So later on in your leisure, you can listen back again and separate the wheat from the chaff. So that's all for today. If you love what you heard on the podcast and you like daily access to me, To ask me questions on how to sell in your business, then the WhatsApp coaching club is now open, and the investment required is only 5,000 naira a month. You get to ask me anything. I'll give you answers and assignments to move the business forward. So if you're interested, hit me up on social media DMs or PMs, DM direct message, PM private message. Basically, hit me up in the inbox saying that you're interested, or you can send a message to 080 6466 2140. Again, that is 080 6466 2140. The country code for Nigeria is +234. If you're looking for me on socials, the name is Tabishima Ayede. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. The spelling of my name, the email address, the photo, it's all up on the website where you're currently listening to this episode, or the profile of the podcast app where you're currently listening to my voice. And then finally, if you want to start a business and excuse me, you'd rather save to get your capital instead of looking for bank loans or talking to loan sharks, I'm affiliated with a reputable financial institution that has over 504 billion naira in assets under management as of 2023. What this means is this organization is not going to go broke anytime soon, and they're a secure organization to work with. And the business of protecting and guaranteeing your savings, because banks don't really help you save. They charge you lots of fees, and then they give you the ATM card. You go and withdraw money whenever you want. So it's one step forward, two steps back. And then, of course, loan sharks, they will embarrass you. They'll send messages to everybody saying that, hey, Kunle took a loan and he has defaulted. And then they want your mother as a security for the payment. So banks, better than loan sharks. But either way, there's a better way to save. So message me on 080 6466 2140 to get started on saving towards your dream. Now, it doesn't have to be saving towards business goals, because any savings plans will do. Some people are saving for the education of their children, you have kids in primary school, you're saving up towards secondary school because you want them to go to that fancy school in Lagos Island or wherever. Or the kids are just getting ready to finish secondary school and you want them to go to Harvard or Oxford, and you want to start putting away millions of naira towards that. So any plan will do, not just business. Education savings, they're in the business of guaranteeing that. Retirement savings, they can do that as well. For those of you who are the 18% of you, surprisingly, who are 65, sorry, not 65, is it? I think it's 65 and above listeners of the podcast. I have to check the stats again. Close to about 18 of you who listen to the show. Thank you very much for listening, by the way. So you guys reach out. We can help with saving for your retirement too. So thanks for your time and attention. I'll catch you guys at the next episode.